Recording in progress.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. We thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this holy month of Ramadan to give us the opportunity to be able to discuss an important topic relating to zakat, sadaqah, and charity in general. Inshallah, we'll begin our program with the recitation from Brother Mustahsin to recite some verses from the Holy Quran.
Thank you very much, Brother Ali Jafri. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. لن تنالوا البر حتى تنفقوا مما تحبون وما تنفقوا من شيء فإن الله به عليم. كل الطعام كان حلا لبني إسرائيل إلا ما حرم إسرائيل على نفسه من قبل إلا ما حرم إسرائيل على نفسه من قبل أن تنزل التوراة قل فأتوا بالتوراة فاقتوها إن كنتم صادقين. قل فأتوا بالتوراة فاتلوها إن كنتم صادقين. صدق الله العلي العظيم.
Ahsantum, jazakumullah, Brother Mustahsin, for the beautiful recitation. We congratulate the Imam of our time and everyone on the auspicious occasion of the birth anniversary of our second Imam, Imam al-Hasan al-Mujtaba, alayhi salam, and what a relating to charity when our beloved Imam is known as Kareem al-Ahlul Bayt, alayhim salam. Today's topic is relating to the forgotten responsibilities of charity, and we will be discussing and spiritual meanings behind charity. Before I get into the topic and introduce our esteemed speaker, let me introduce and tell you a little bit about 𝐷 Global Network. We are a group of individuals who've been working tirelessly for the last activities performed under the banner of 𝐷 Global Network. The most noticeable one is the annual networking event within the shrine of Imam al-Hussein monthly ones on important topics that come out of the networking event, and we invite speakers and experts from all around the world on different topics. We also have a platform, 𝐷𝐴𝐵𝐸nglobal.net, where individuals and organizations can come together and connect in the name of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. So today's topic is relating to charity, and we are very thankful to Hujjatul Islam wal Muslimin, Sayyid Ali Raza Rizvi, who introduction. He's a well-known speaker and travels extensively around the world, not only speaking on various topics, but he's involved in multiple organizations, some of them charitable organizations as well, and has got a huge amount of experience from a practical perspective in dealing with charitable initiatives, and also inspiring the younger generation as well as the communities in different parts of the world towards charity. So, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, Molana.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you for your time. Well, I won't take too much time, but we would go straight into the topic, if that's okay. I'd like you to just talk a little bit about the importance of charity in Islam, and also we hear about different fitra, and not just charity relating to financial means, but other types of charities as well. So if you can just shed some light on the importance of charity, and what are these different types of charities and the benefits of all of them as well. Thank you. As the communities in different parts of the world.
From day one, Islam emphasized on charity, and the person who contributed the most in the name of charity for Islam, for propagation of Islam, was Hazrat 𝐻𝐡𝐞 𝐅𝐨𝐫𝐠𝐲 𝐸𝐻𝐡𝐞 𝐅𝐨𝐵𝐃𝐬 Salamullah alayha, who was also known to be Malikatul Arab, the crownless princess or queen of Arabia. She was the richest woman in her time, and she contributed generously. She contributed her entire wealth for Islam. Now, there are a number of charities in Islam. Some are obligatory, mandatory, and some are recommended. So, like homes, zakat. Zakat is basically the poor rate. So, on certain things you have to give zakat. And homes is basically the 20% on certain things, like treasure trove, mines. When you draw treasure from earth, or when you dive in the sea, and likewise other means. So these are obligatory. Zakat-e-fitra on Eid, giving a poor rate 3 kilograms of worth of wheat or whatever you normally eat. These are obligatory. Likewise, there are other obligatory kafaras, which are penalties that if you, for example, leave your fast, there are so many different sins for which you have to give penalties in terms of kafarat, and those will be given to again the poor people. And then there are other means of giving poor people what they deserve. Some of them are sadaqat, which are charities, which are recommended. Nuzur, nazr, for example, becomes wajib, that if you say that if I accomplish this, or if I acquire this business, or if I am able to fulfill this, then I will give something in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is nazr. Then that also becomes an obligation. And then there is radd mazalim, which is basically when you have committed a sin, or when you have certain obligations on you because of
recording in progress.
You have helped someone and you have fulfilled an obligation. you closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so that has a spiritual effect on you. It also because the person, and they will pray for you, or even if they don't pray for you, when you please them, it has an impact on your spiritual state and also on your mental state. And all of those will have a physical effect on your body, on your heart, on your mind. When you see others having a better life because of your donation, or because of your contribution, because of your sponsor, all of these have an impact on a person's mind and soul.
So just a follow-on question from that. We talk about charity within the Muslim communities and the faith communities, and relate them to spiritual benefit. But aside from that, we see in the non-faith communities or the faithless communities, or even like outside the Muslim world, there's a lot of emphasis on charity, and they sometimes doing a lot more in terms of giving as well. So do they have an impact of that charity as well, or is it something like related to Muslims only, and the reward that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives to believers only?
No, so even a disbeliever will have an impact. So even they will benefit from removing the calamities from them, because so there is an athar wada'i, athar takwini, as we call it, an effect which is placed. So so even a Muslim or a non-Muslim, believer, non-believer, if they start lifting weights, they will gain strength. So it makes no difference if it is a Muslim or non-Muslim. Likewise, there is an effect of charity. So even if a non-Muslim gives charity, so they will have calamities removed from them. Secondly, they will be rewarded, if not in the hereafter, then at least in this world. Third, they may be guided to the path of God, and they will become closer to God. Fourth, not only just given to non-Muslims, but even given to animals. It has an impact on your soul and on your mind. There's a story about Imam Hassan al-Mujtaba that he saw an African slave in olden days who would eat a portion himself, and then he would give a portion to his dog. So the Imam al-Islam smiled and asked him, "What are you doing?" So he said, "Asahi, I feel embarrassed from my dog that, because he was a guard dog in a garden. He was a farmer. He was working for someone in someone's farm. He was a slave of this man, and he had a dog. So they had a dog, and he would also look after the dog. So he said, I feel embarrassed, ashamed from this dog that I eat, and I don't feed him. He is also hungry. So I take one bite, and then I give him a bite to feed him." The Imam said, "Don't rise from your place." The Imam walked up to him and asked his master how much he is worth. So then he paid the master and freed the slave. And he said, "You're a free man for feeding this dog and caring about an animal." And then he said to the master of that slave, and he said, "What is the price of this garden?" So he told him, and he said, "Okay, I'll pay you to sell this garden to me." The Imam al-Islam bought the garden, and then when he had freed that slave, he said, "You're a free man, and this garden also now belongs to you. I will gift it to you for feeding an animal." So charity, even for animals, has an impact, let alone other human beings.
Alhamdulillah, I think that shows the significance of this act, that if even not so much, those who follow the Islamic guidance, specifically the followers of the Ahlul Bayt, how much they can benefit from charity. Thank you. My next question is, once we have determined an obligation, recommended perspective, what are the best places to spend those charity? Such, if I have let's say £10 to donate, how should I prioritize and what should I look out for when spending charity?
Okay, so there are categories. So, this is the first, then second, third. If you look at the description, the Holy Quran says that who deserves the charity the most? So first of all, human beings. Before you give anything to anyone else, for example, for a building or animals or building a mosque, who deserves it the most? Human beings. And out of human beings, the believers. So if there is a Muslim or even there is a Shia, then they deserve it most. And then you give it to other Muslims and to non-Muslims and to disbelievers, then to other
meeting
means.
information.
There is someone else speaking in the middle. So it is very important that we make sure that we give to the believers first. So they deserve it the most, human beings. And secondly, then you would give charity to, for example, for food, then for clothing. That's the second most important part. For example, there are a lot of people who don't even have proper food today. So you would give it for food. Secondly, for clothing, because that's the second most important. Third, for shelter. To human beings, even there are levels. Which do you buy someone a house or do you give someone food first? So food, medicine, clothing, shoes, shelter. So likewise, and then marriage, another means of charity. So there are many different ways of giving charity, and so human beings deserve it first, and then there are levels of who deserves it more.
And sometimes people have the means to give charity. Either they are wealthy or they've got things like enough things that they can give charity out. But there might be other people who would hear the benefits of charity, and they would think, like, if we had the wealth or if we had the things, then we could have done charity, but they don't have the means. So what should those people do? Is there anything they can do if they don't have the physical means to give charity? How can they get benefit from this, like the poor people? So they might be receiving charity, but at the same time they want to give as well, but they're not able to. What's their responsibility, and what should they be doing?
Okay, so some people can work as so you could have people who can give, and some people can't give money, but they can give time. They can work for a charity, and some people can assist the people who deserve it. For example, travelers may deserve it, and you can assist them by supporting them, giving them residence. I don't know. So there are so many different methods and means of supporting. So it is very important that you support all the different levels of all the different factions of society that deserve charity. So first are human beings, and there are many people who can give money, many people can give time, many people can give their expertise. For example, a doctor can go and serve directly, an accountant can give some time for preparing the accounts of the charity. So many people can go and work directly, physically, for a charity. So all can benefit, and it is very important that we all try and help in one way or the other. So it is extremely important that we all pay attention to what we are doing for a charity.
This verse that brother recited at the beginning, "لَن تَنَالُوا الْبِرَّ It is said in that verse that unless you give something from what you really love, you won't achieve piety. So it feels like when we are giving a bit of our money, or when we are giving anything, it's how do we determine, like, is this something that we love or not? And why is there emphasis in the Quran about giving things that you love only? What if you give something like which you don't love? Does that still count as charity?
Okay, so the real sawab, reward in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is that when you give something that you like, for example, you're going to throw something away and you say, okay, let's just give it in charity. Because you're going to throw it away and you give it in charity because it's not worth anything, or it is not usable anymore. That is not true charity. Something that you still like, then you give. For example, money that you like, you give. Clothes that you still like, for example, you're going to throw away some piece of clothing because it is not usable anymore. And you say, okay, let's give it in charity. That is not true charity. Charity is when you give some clothing that you still like and it is still usable, so still, so that's what it means, that you still like. So you will never reach the stature of piety until you give something that you like in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that means that something which is still usable, something which is still worthy. So don't give something which is unworthy now, so useless. No one is going to use it, so let's give it in charity. Mm-hmm. So food which is rotten, or clothes which are unusable, or so I'll give my car, is broken down, no one can use it, or I'll just give it in charity then. That's not charity. So clothes which are completely torn or worn out, which cannot be used, or food which is rotten, no one's going to eat it. That's not charity. So give something that still is good, in good condition, usable. So money, for example, okay, this is change left over. I have 1p, 1 penny change, 2p change left from shopping. I'll give it in charity. Because you don't want to carry it. No, give something which is worth something, and then you say, okay, no, I still need it and I can use it. 20 pence, I can still buy something from it. Give that in the way of Allah subhanahu.
Well, we have some examples from the life of Imam Hassan alayhi salam, where he would give his cloak away for it to him, and they see something in his house and he asks for it, he gives that away. How much are we to take those examples in practical terms? Or is it something that is left for the imams as well, where they used to give everything that they had? I've also heard the narration where Imam Hassan, at I think 2 or 3 times in his life, gave everything away to people. We know that the need is endless. So how much should we go far in giving away everything that we are using as well, based on these narrations?
Okay, so no matter how much you give, and if you give more than even Imam Hassan, you will never acquire his stature. You will not become Imam Hassan al-Mujtaba. Secondly, you can give away even obligations like Hajj. The mas'ala, the issue says that if you go to Hajj and you come back and you become penniless, and you become needful yourself, and you become dependent on others, or you become needy because of performing Hajj, you can't do anything anymore. For example, if you had, let's say, 8,000 pounds, and now you spend that 8,000 pounds to do Hajj, you come back and you are now struggling to pay your rent, you're struggling to pay your mortgage, you're struggling to pay your monthly necessities and obligations, then the Hajj is not valid. So people like Imam Hassan al-Mujtaba, he would rebuild, he had many ideas, he would start from zero again. He gave everything away in his life a number of times. And sometimes, he gave half of his wealth. And then he would restart the business. So, he would reinvent everything. He would restart his business from zero, working and reviving lands, farmland, he would revive it and then, rebuild his life. So some people can do that. Some people are very highly talented, so they can rebuild. For example, if I gave everything away I'm a lecturer, I would start, teaching again, writing again, translating, doing 10,000 things, and rebuild my life. Some people can't rebuild their life. If they gave away everything, they will not be able to rebuild. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not require you to give everything away and then you are now destitute yourself. You have no means of rebuilding your life.
Okay.
So you give up everything to rebuild your life. And then rebuild your life through business or through work, through job, then it is good. Many people did that in history. They gave everything away they had, in business and wealth, and they rebuilt their life again from scratch. And it is highly rewarding. So, for example, if a person had 1 million and they gave 10,000 in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and one person had 100,000 and they give 10,000, and one person had 10,000 and they give 10,000. You can see the percentage. One person gave 1%, the other person gave 10%, and the third person gave 100%. So they all gave 10,000, but one gave only 1% of his wealth. The other person gave, 10% of his wealth, and the third person gave everything of his wealth. So it all depends on how much you give, with what intention. Did you need it or not? With all of those in mind, once you give everything in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then Allah's reward is accordingly given to you. The Ahlul Bayt, you will never be able to reach the place of Ahlul Bayt al-Islam.
Alhamdulillah. I think that's the pragmatic approach of looking at it. Everyone has their own circumstances, and they can do the self-assessment and decide what's best for themselves and do as much as possible. So thank you for that. Well, my next question is around the dependency of charity on human beings. It seems like God has created this system where the wealthier people can give, or the people who've got something to give, they give, and the other people get help from it. But is this something that is essential for this system to work, or it feels like we've taken God out of the situation, and we're saying that the wealthy people would cover the needs of the poorer people? What happens if charity starts to decrease, or if there's no charity? Would there be any difference? Would the poor people still survive?
So the Holy Quran, when describing the rich and the poor, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to the rich people, He said, according along those lines, I'm fasting. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He gives more to some people, He has placed the right and the share of the poor people and the destitute people in their wealth. And it is a trial for them that once they get more, they give more. So once you have more wealth, your lifestyle should not be the only thing that improves. It is your standard of living that should not only improve, it is the standard of giving that should also improve. So it is basically, that's why there is more obligation on the rich people. So rich people have to give 20% of their wealth, of homes, zakat and other things, whatever they earn. So they give a share of their wealth to the poor people, and that's wajib. It is an obligation. And if you give more than it is more rewarding. So you can give more. You can give 30%, 40%, half. So it depends on how much can you give in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is up to you. But some may be wajib, the other may be recommended.
So it's still, I think the dependency on God still exists, where the wealthier people are getting their wealth from God. So if God hasn't done His mercy on these wealthier people, then the whole system would be this. I think that's the good way to explain it. I'd like to move on some of the responsibilities of people who put themselves in charge for collecting this money, because not everyone is able to take the charity to the needy person directly himself. So we have certain NGOs, we have non-profit organizations, and alhamdulillah, quite a few within our community as well. What should be their responsibility? If someone says that I am going to take this task of helping other people, or I'm become a trustee of a charity, or I'm forming an organization and which we will help either in here or in any other country, what should be the responsibility of those people who take this big task of distributing charity?
First of all, some of them can be paid. The Holy Quran, when describing in I think Surah Anfal or Surah. So in the Holy Quran, Allah says lil fuqara wal masakin, it describes all the categories: the poor people, the masakin, which are aswa hala, meaning they are worse off than the poor. People who are destitute, people who are travelers, who have during their journey have become destitute. So it describes all these different categories. The people who are working. So people who work for the charities, they can be paid from the charity, meaning who are working full time. They have no other. So but they shouldn't be paid, big salaries and because it is from the poor people's wealth. So it is basically sadaqah money or charity money. But what is important is that the people who take up this responsibility, if some people who can give more time, people who have a good job or good business, and as a part-time, some people have to work full-time to be honest, for the charities. But people like me, people like you, we all work for charities, and we have our own jobs, we have our full-time other things, and we give some part-time responsibility towards charities. So we don't charge, we don't take money from the charity work that we do, but we give our time to it. But there are people who work full time. So the responsibility is to make sure that it goes to the people who deserve it. Secondly, they must make sure that the people in many different parts. Now in sadaqat and zakat, according to a hadith, it says that if in your own area there are people who deserve charity, then they should be given first before you take the wealth to another city. So if there are deserving people of some charity in your area, then you should give them first and then give to someone else. But for certain things like homes and other things, you don't have to look in your own place. You can go straight to another place. So it all depends on where you're doing the charity work. And many people, many charities do, for example, in Africa, parts of Africa, in Asia, in different countries. But there are many, unfortunately, there are more deserving people and more people who are poor now than ever before. The population is over 8 billion, and there are many orphans in the world. If the orphans were given their own country, they would be, I think, the 7th largest country in the world. So you can imagine that there are something like 170 million, 175 million orphans in the world or something. And then there are, people who can't still, make ends meet. So there are a lot of destitute and poor people in the world today who can't afford 3 meals a day. Some people can't even afford 2 meals a day. So it is an obligation on all the people who have wealth to make sure that people get, first of all, food, and secondly, clothing, third, shelter, fourth, education, medicine, and other things.
Okay. Yeah, I think yes. So I was trying to sort of clarify. I think you've explained it that it seems like there is no qualification as such or a criteria. Anyone who feels that they have they have the capability of collecting money and distributing it, they can do it. But I think they should be knowledgeable enough to understand, trustworthy enough, and also in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, where they are answerable. They have to be very careful about the money they collect and the money they spend.
So the spending, they should know
from the other side, from the person who is.
So, for example, homes, they should know that Sami Sadat goes to deserving Sayyids. So any person who does not have annual expenses, then they can give them. So all they should know basic fiqh if they want to do the charity work, and if they don't know, then they can ask the people who know who deserves it, and who can we give, and they can give it to anyone. There is no conditions, but anyone can come. They should be trustworthy. They should be reliable, and they should be sincere. They should do it for the sake of Allah subhanahu.
Yeah, but I think it's as you said, I think there has to be this minimum knowledge, because if you don't have that, then the chances are that you can cause some problems for yourself later on. But from the other side, the person who is giving the money, what is their responsibility? As in, like, how far do they need to go to understand that if someone is asking, for example, for a water pump in Pakistan, and you pay the £50, how far, or he's saying that they're giving money for orphan support or for education, how far do we need to go to check as a donor that this person will be doing the job or not? Or our part is done when we've paid the homes to the representative?
Well, I think the first and foremost is that you should be certain, or at least you should have satisfaction that this is a reliable charity. It is, representative is, or any person collecting homes is authorized, or any person who is collecting charity, they are authorized, or they are reliable, and they will be spending it correctly. They will not be usurping it or misusing it, because all of those things do happen. But majority of the people, who are dedicated to charity work, may be very sincere and were dedicated and reliable, but not all. So we have to make sure that people are reliable, authorized. If they are saying that I'm authorized by so and so charity, or I'm authorized by so and so organization or authority, then they must have some sort of paperwork to prove that they are authorized. And likewise, and they should be some sort of proof that that these people can do this work.
Okay. Thank you. Just my final question. Sorry, we've taken a lot of your time. What advice would you give to parents when they are bringing their children up to train them in charity? Because it feels there's with the world becoming more complex, we have to do a lot of tarbiyah of our youth in lots of different aspects of it. And by the time they will start earning, it would be they would have spent a big part of their life in there. So how can we encourage our youth, or what can parents do to encourage their youth to get into this habit of giving, and then inshallah, when they get into the position of giving themselves, then they will be ready to go.
Yeah, I think from early age, rather than teaching them, be good role models for them. They should see you give charity. So sirran wa alaniyatan, the Holy Quran uses these two terms, that you should secretly give charity, and alaniyatan, and you should openly give charity. So openly, so you set an example for others to give. And that example should be for your children, that you should teach them from a very early age that you give charity. Once they see you give charity, they will learn from you, and they will see that the parents are doing it, and the children will pick it up. So it is very important that you tell them the consequences of, it's a sin not to fulfill to fulfill the needs of the poor people. So from very early age, all children should see that the poor people are being reached to. There are people who care for them, who reach out to them, and those children will learn to step into the shoes of their parents and continue the charity work.
Okay. Thank you. Just while we have you, and it's the holy month of Ramadan as well, where worshipful acts are multiplied, and the reward are multiplied by the option of this platform. Can you give us like some advice on how to make the best use of the month of Ramadan?
Remember that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned salat and zakat together. But fasting is only once in a year, and it has many, many spiritual benefits. Number one, it gives you sincerity. Number two, it gives you wisdom. Number three, it makes you closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in terms of, because the closest state to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is when you are hungry or when you are in sajda. So it makes you closest to Allah. Number four, your du'as are granted. So make sure that you do make dua. Don't just make it, a burden. Fasting is a burden and you don't make any dua. No, make dua while fasting. Number five, be beneficial and, useful to others when fasting. So usually we take it as, oh my God, I'm fasting. So it is, I can't do anything. No, try and help out, try and help in the house, try and help others. And that will make it make you beneficial while fasting, so it will give you more reward. So there are many, many aspects of fasting we should. And the sixth and the most important is read Quran and reflect upon what you read in the Holy Quran.
Yeah, thank you very much for your time. We are truly grateful to, first of all, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for giving us this opportunity to get together and discuss this topic, and for your time of sharing the wise words and all your experiences and the religious knowledge. May Allah increase your tawfiqat as well, and we pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala all benefit as much as possible from the.
Thank you.
We're hopeful that you may have benefit from the guidance provided by Ḥujjat Islam wal Muslimin, Sayyid Ali Raza Rizvi, and we request you to support Al-Baini Global Network by visiting our platform on Give Tawfiq for everyone to go for ziyarat this year. If you are planning to be in Karbala on the day of Arba'in, inshallah, then you can join us at the networking event on the next day. All the details are on our website on how you can register and find the place. Thank you, Molana, once again. And we'll end with the dua of Imam Zaman. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Allahumma kulli waliyyika al-Hujjat ibn al-Hasan. Salawatuka alayhi wa ala abaih. Fi hadhihi da'ati وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائلا وناصرا وذليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. May Allah hasten the reappearance of the 12th Imam by Wasila of Imam al-Hasan alayhi salam on his auspicious birth occasion, and count us among the followers of the 12th Imam, inshallah. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Muhammad wa ajil faraj.
Recording stopped.